This is Tom Tolles. You're listening to WithoutYourHead.com. And you're doing it without your head. Think about it. Oh, wait, you can't. You don't have a head. Oh, man, I went too far again.
All right, we're back here once again. I guess we could give our names again. This is Nasty Neil.
This is Annabelle Lecter.
And I'm still terrible, Troy.
Excellent. And on the line with us here on this station of Decapitation Without Your Head, we have David Hartman, the director of Phantasm Ravager. Hey.
Hey.
Hey, guys.
How you doing?
Doing okay, considering, like I think I told you, I'm stuck in traffic on the car, so if you guys can't hear me or whatever, just yell at me and I'll call back from a better number.
All right.
All right. Fair enough. So, Phantasm Ravager, how did you even get involved in it?
It's pretty crazy. I mean, I met Don Coscarelli, I was working at Sony Television doing some animated series, and it just so happened a editor friend of mine had another editor friend who was working with Don Coscarelli, and I had an opportunity to pitch an idea for a main title for Bubba Ho-Tep.
Nice.
So I got to meet Don through Bubba, and Don was like, "Hey, you do some effects stuff. Can you do wire removal?" And I was like, "Oh, hell yeah, I can do wire removal." And then I went home and Googled how to do wire removal. I had no idea.
That's good, because I've never even heard of such a thing.
Yeah, so, from there I became good friends with Don and helped him on other projects. And we wrote a script together for this movie we wanted to make called Escape from Freak Mansion. And it would be a thing for me to direct, and but Don wanted me to get my reel pumped up a little more. So I came up with this idea like, hey, why don't we go out some weekend and just shoot a short film? At the time I was just like shooting a short film every weekend and sending it to Don, and I was doing this for years. And so I was like, why don't we do one for Phantasm? You can make it an Easter egg on a DVD or something. And he's like, sure, let's go do it. So I wrote up a scene, which ended up being in the movie, which was the scene of Reggie meeting Dawn at the cabin, and the whole falling asleep and playing her a song and stuff, all the way up until where she gets killed. And I wrote the scene, and I was always planning for Don to direct. I just wanted to help out and watch the master. And right before we're getting ready to shoot, he's like, "Oh, by the way, you're directing this thing." So he just kind of threw me in, but it was still this short film, so there wasn't a lot of pressure, and it was a lot of fun. So we did one, and Don was like, "Wow, that came out really cool. Why don't we do another?" And then another, and then another. Then we took some time off. Don went to do John Dies at the End, and I went to go do the show Transformers Prime. And we came back and was like, what are we going to do with all this footage? And Don's like, we're doing part 5. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, this is going to be great, Don. You're doing part 5. He's like, no, you're doing it. You're directing, and you're already a third done. So, so really I kind of got thrown into it and didn't know I was directing, until after a lot of the work was done, which was, pretty cool and probably the best way to do it, because if he told me outright, I would have been freaking scared to death and going crazy.
Yeah.
So sorry, that's a long story, but that's
it's cool.
basically
it's
how we got thrown in.
Yeah,
it's really interesting. It sounds like you really lucked out, like you were saying, that way that you kind of ended up into it. You seemed hesitant on ready to just do a short, just direct a short, so that's great. Yeah,
and then that actually was that cabin scene, so that was the first thing shot on that movie. And, I'm a total fan of this series. I grew up with this. I've told the story, but I still remember Fangoria issue number 2, and it had John Frankenheimer's Prophecy Bear on the cover.
Oh, hell yeah, I have that copy.
Yeah, it's like I got that when I was like 7 years old. I saw it at the bookstore. I begged my mom. My mom's like, I'm not sure about this. I'm like, please, Mom, I love monsters. Get this for me. So, I mean, giving this thing to a 7 or 8 year old, but I would sneak this thing into school like it was a dirty magazine. I kept it in my backpack, and, I still have this issue. It's totally trash, but it had a picture of the tall man's yellow bloody finger and Michael Baldwin floating in front of the red background. I would just stare at this thing forever, and it had a huge impact on me, this film. So, it's really weird because it's just until now that I've actually been getting to sit back and go, holy crap, I made a Phantasm film. It's just been nonstop work. But, as a kid, I've always been a fan of this series. So, just getting this opportunity, I totally feel like, the kid that got the golden ticket, and I get to go see the Chocolate Factory now, it's totally a fanboy dream come true. So, and then getting to work with everybody, getting to bring all the original cast back and these people you looked up to ever since you were a small kid. It's a pretty amazing feeling.
Yeah, were they all were they all cool with you? When you first meet them, because they've all done these movies for decades, and then here's someone new coming in to direct the fifth one.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, I was scared to death of that. It was really daunting. Here's all these guys with 30 years of in-jokes, and I'm the new guy that's just kind of sitting there putting on a smile trying to keep up. And, I was absolutely afraid that they wouldn't accept me. But honestly, every single person was like, just took me with open arms, It's like I would show them a lot of my short films and stuff so they can trust that I, had some idea of what I was doing, and luckily I had several projects, although most of them animated, but I, had a lot of these short films. And then Don's blessing, So yeah, Reggie was the first person brought on board, and probably the biggest one, for me, and I would think most people was Angus Scrimm. Is Angus going to be open to this? And that was a pretty amazing time. Just another little story was I went to I think it was a Cheesecake Factory with Don, and he brought Angus, and it was the first time Angus had read, the lines I wrote for him, and, the idea was for him to give me notes, and I'm just sitting here, eating a salad, watching the tall man tell me what he thought of it, and honestly, he was just like, this is what the tall man would say. He's like, he was totally excited. Probably more. The tall man got to say more in this movie than the other four combined. So he was pretty ecstatic. So yeah, it's getting to meet these guys and to now be able to call them friends. And I still stay in touch with everybody in the cast. It's a pretty amazing feeling, and again, I'm very grateful to them and Don for this opportunity. And then to have them actually come up and tell me how much they actually love the movie, that means a lot as well.
Yeah, that's great.
What do you think it was about Phantasm that stuck with you, as a kid, and anything about Phantasm interests you differently as you got older?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, it was being, this kid. By the time I actually saw the first Phantasm, I was probably around Michael Baldwin's age in the movie. I was probably around 13 or something. I got it from a video store from one of those, awesome video store guys that rated our movies to underage kids. Right. So I was able to get the movie, and it was really the whole dealing with death aspect, and the kid's parents are gone, so, you know, what we've all considered our safety nets or our protectors as a kid was gone, and nobody believed them. It just seemed like this completely impossible situation. And, you know, to get to the second part of your question, is it's like, I feel like I've grown up with this series, you know, like with part 2, I was getting more into action films, and then part 3, you know, we start getting a little more into the esoteric, and then part 4, we get really, you know, kind of deep into it. And, you know, but one thing that always stuck with me on the first film was the innocence, you know. By part 2, everyone's kind of badass, and they've seen a lot of, you know, dark stuff. But that first film, there was that innocence, and that's something we tried to do with Ravager. Was, you know, we thought about it, and, you know, the whole thing about Alzheimer's, it kind of brought it full circle for us, and that, you know, and with dementia, that it brought an innocence back to Reggie's character. You know, and for me, that was a big part of the first film, and something I wanted to try and bring into the Ravager. Hopefully, it worked.
That was something that's stuck with me, was the Reggie character in Ravager, because you know, my grandmother's in her 90s, and actually the last year or so she's starting to see things that aren't actually there, and it was interesting to see that in the movie, and how you kind of play with that, like maybe they're, you know, for us we think they're seeing something that isn't there, but maybe there is something, you know, that they're seeing, but in another, you know, another parallel universe, whatever. Is there anything that's personal to you about that in the story? Was there, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've all had probably know some family member or know someone that has a family member that's gone through that, and again, that's where it brings that innocence. You know, I remember when I was in college, my wife's grandmother was had Alzheimer's, and you know, one of the first times I you know, met my wife, her grandmother kept calling me Bob, and was thinking I was somebody from her past. And that kind of struck me, you know. What if what they're seeing is what they're actually seeing, you know, and their mind is someplace else. And, you know, when I talked with Dawn, it just seemed like a perfect fit into the world of Phantasm, and kind of echo the first film a little bit with that. I don't know, did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, definitely.
You know, you could see stuff like that in other films, but I really thought it worked so well. It didn't feel like gimmicky or used at all. It like you hit on the innocence part, and you just get so into his experience, and it's kind of screwing with you as people who've seen these Phantasm movies before. But sometimes people would say something like that could be like an easy way to balance two stories, but I thought it was really sincere, and it came off so well.
No, thank you. I mean, it did mean a lot to us, and you know, we took a risk. That, you know, Ravager doesn't actually follow a 3-part structure. You know, we kind of jump around to different times, and you know, the whole point was to keep the audience as disoriented as your main character. If they knew what was going on, you couldn't relate. For me, I don't think you could relate to Reggie as well.
Absolutely.
You know, so that means a lot to hear, because, you know, it could be considered a jumbled mess, or it could be something deeper, which is what we were actually hoping for and what we were striving for.
I could like go on and on with praise, because frankly, when I saw it, I was like, as soon as, and these guys know, and people that see the reviews know, I don't get into a ton of movies, but really, from the beginning to the end, I loved this movie. I really did. And like, I'm not always into like action-y stuff or things like that, but it really felt like like I said, you could feel like a sincerity to it, and it was so actiony, and it made me think, because I used to game when I was a kid. I don't know if you played role-playing games or stuff like that with people, but I did. I'm like, this is a freaking adventure. People got like cool car and a trunk full of weapons, and there's this crazy guy out there, and the things are happening. And it was just exciting. And when Reggie's going through this stuff, you're like, man, this sucks. What's going on? And I loved it. I absolutely love this movie.
Well, I mean, it really was a labor of love. Like I said, I'm a fan. I mean, Dawn is the biggest fan of Phantasm there is. You know, so yeah, it's like putting all this stuff together. It's just been fully unreal, but that means a lot to hear because, you know, because this thing was basically a no-budget film. You know, we made this thing for, I mean, an incredibly low amount of money, and you know, a lot of people say it's obvious. You know, but you know, at the same time, it forces you to be creative. And again, everyone involved really believed in this project. All the actors, you know, like I said, Angus Scrimm was a real champion of the film. So. Yeah, that means a lot to hear. It really does. Because you work in a bubble, you know, out here. And, you know, it's like I said, it hasn't been until actually getting to take the film to conventions and getting to meet other fans and like-minded people that all of a sudden it suddenly hit me how real this is and you know, how important this film was for me for how many years we spent on it. My daughter, I think, was, you know, like 4 or 5 when I started this film, and she's in high school now. So,
oh wow,
you know, she grew up and she played, you know, some of the dwarves. So she's the smallest person I knew, and Don did that with his kid. So I was like, I gotta get my kid in there. So put on this robe and, you know, so that was a lot of fun.
I have to say though, and early on, I don't want to. For people who haven't seen it, I don't want to ruin the scene because it's really was very intense. But there's a scene with Angus that is not predictable. You don't expect it's going to happen. It was very hard to watch because we were in Seattle and did an interview with him in person. It is really probably the interview I enjoyed and took the most away from him. Because
it was the most bittersweet thing.
He is so lovely.
I mean, he's such a gentleman and a thespian, and you know, there's something very regal about Angus when you're even just talking one-on-one. But the scene you're talking about was actually the last scene we shot with him.
Were you guys all crying? Because
yeah, I mean, for me. He, you know, there's the part where he raises his eyebrow and goes, he reveals the tall man, you know?
Yes.
And, like, when we were filming that, I remember, like, yelling cut, and then, like, looking at all the crew going, holy shit, I got chills. Do you guys have chills? Like, everybody just hearing his voice and stuff. But, you know, just another anecdotal story. We knew he was sick at the time, and then we kind of wrote that scene to work for Angus to give him something else, but where he doesn't have to exert a lot. And you know, I wanted to make sure Angus got to see this film. Like, I would not be able to live with myself knowing that Angus never got to see the film. So one day I picked him up from his house, and we went to a screening room, and I believe it was me, Don, Angus, and Reggie, and his wife Gigi. So I could screen the film for Angus, and I've told the story before, but I love it because it's one of my greatest or fondest memories with Angus. Was that I picked him up at his house, and it totally felt for me like the scene out of Tim Burton's Ed Wood, you know, where Johnny Depp goes to pick up Mark Landau as Lugosi, and you know, there was something just like, here's this idol of mine ever since I was a little kid, and I'm getting to pick him up at his house and take him to go see my movie that he's in. And I remember Angus looked at me, he's like, you know, David, who's going to drive me home after the movie? And I was like, well, Angus, you know, if you love the movie, I'll drive you home. If you hate the movie, Don's going to drive you home because there's no way I'm going to be able to handle that. I was like, it would tear me apart. So we watched the movie, and, you know, Angus is just sitting there straight-faced the whole time, and I'm sitting, you know, in the very back of the theater just so I can watch him. And, you know, I'm just like, got my fists, I'm white-knuckling it, I'm scared to death. You know, there's no reaction, there's no smile, there's nothing. And I'm just like, oh my God, he's just making his way through it. But after the movie, he comes up and, you know, grabs me by the hand and is just, you know, David, you are taking me home. And like, you know, I just basically almost teared up, you know, and even now watching these scenes with him are very emotional and almost hard to watch, and, you know, after what happened. And I got really sick myself, and I got contracted one of these super bugs you hear about, you know, where like antibiotics don't work against it and all that. And this thing just tore me apart. And I was in the hospital off and on for like 7 months. And Angus passed when I was in the hospital. And I'm all, you know, shot up with painkillers and drugged up. And I get this phone call from Don telling me that Angus just died. And I mean, it was just a surreal and horrible, horrible moment. But, you know, now in hindsight, I can take some peace in it, knowing that he saw the movie, he loved it, and, you know, I really wish he was here to enjoy this part of it. That was his favorite part, was meeting all the fans and getting to talk with people, and he absolutely loved that. Yeah, he loved performing, and you know, so it's really sad that he's not here to get to enjoy this aspect of the filmmaking.
And like you mentioned, he had more time speaking than he had in probably everything combined, and it was all wonderful. But that one scene, I remember when we interviewed him, and he said when he was a kid and he wanted to act, he looked to actors like Clark Gable, and that's what he wanted to do. And he ended up as a tall man, and he loved it, and he was very, very happy with it. But I thought, this is like his time to have this really emotional moment in that film where it's obviously that part is not the regular tall man, and even the tall man himself gets a lot more emotional investment, I think, than he normally would.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the part in the White Room area, you know, where he kind of loses it with Reggie a little. We've never actually seen the tall man show emotion or even a lack of control of anything before. So, you know, that was you know, a lot different. I you know, and Angus was really excited about that. And I remember we had before we filmed these scenes, we decided to film that White Room. Was actually filmed at my house in my kitchen, where I was going to rent this big sound stage, and you know, where all the walls are painted white, and we were going to do it there. But then it was such an emotional scene. I just didn't want Reggie and Angus to be sitting there miserable, just, you know, sitting in fold-out chairs, waiting for their scenes, and you know, where they can't wait to get back home. So I decided to just strip out my kitchen and put up all these white walls, basically in white paper, and shot it all in there. So Angus and Reggie can just, you know, sit on the couch and they can relax and practice their lines and everything. And, you know, being able to do this scene and seeing, the tall man was on my couch, you know, sitting next to Reggie, and the two are reading the lines of that White Room scene. And I mean, it was such a surreal moment. But, you know, it was at that moment where I was so excited that we did give him these emotional scenes, and we did give him a little more to chew on than we've seen in the other films than just being, the boogeyman. We got a little bit more of his agenda.
Yeah.
Not that Phantasm ever gives you complete answers to anything.
Yeah. I really liked the line during that scene where he said that that Reggie was his bad dream.
Yeah, I did too. That was one of those things where Don and I were like, oh, that's cool when we put it on paper. But then when Angus took it and owned it and made it his own, we were like, holy cow, that's a great line. But that's because Angus said it.
You actually said in the commentary that when they were reading that scene together, that like they had some like words with each other, like I guess about what each of the other character was going to say. Like what were they arguing about?
It wasn't as much an argument as different styles of acting, and every actor has a different way. And Angus is, he's a very classically trained actor. He was given the script and he loved it, and he had his chance to change words if, when we would go to lunch and talk it over. But that was the script, and he was locked in, and, he got it memorized and ready to go. While Reggie, he likes to play off the scene a little bit, and can improvise a little. And there's nothing wrong with either way. It was just they work different ways. So, I think the only dispute was that Reggie might change a word here or there, and Angus wasn't ready for it. So, for me, that was a challenge as a director. How do you find that middle ground for everybody? And the answer to that is film it as written once together, and then let them both have their moments on singles.
Yeah.
Film Angus his way, and then let Reggie do lines as written, but then have some fun with it, because you never know what's going to come out. It's not just one person's mind; it's how everybody works together. And no one knows these characters better than the actors who've played them for 30 years.
It's true.
And I would say each of them has a lot of their character in them, What you see with their characters has a lot to their own personalities and stuff. So it's, so if that answers your question, that's what the squabble was. And that was probably the biggest squabble we've ever had on the set. Like, honestly, like everything went so smooth, with the filming and the acting. I can't think of any times where things went south. I mean, of course, things break and things change all the time, and you have to roll with the punches and stuff. But as far as personalities go, everyone got along great, and it truly is one big happy family.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned a few times about having a small budget. How do you pull off some of the things like showing like kind of the end of the world and the Red Planet?
Well, that's a good question, because it's tough. And I'm honestly, I work in animation, I work with CG stuff, but I wanted to do this whole film practically at the beginning. But then you realize, you don't have money for that, and that's a lot more expensive than CG anymore. Really, when Don and I were writing the script and these scenes, and the good thing was is as we were filming these shorts and we were going into the movie, we could learn a little bit more what we were capable of or what we wanted to strive for. So when we're writing these scenes, it was more like, let's just not dumb things down or write to the budget. Mm-hmm. Like, let's honestly tell a story we want to tell.
Yeah.
And then I'll wrap my head around a way to do it. I love being painted into a corner. I love finding an answer to a problem. I'm one of these weirdos that sits there and does the crossword in the news, morning newspaper. There's something about getting a puzzle and then trying to figure it out that's intriguing. And I feel like there's a solution to everything. It might not always be the best solution, but there's always a solution to a problem. And one of those things was like, we want to show more of the Red Planet. And originally I went to the original location Don filmed the, in Phantasm 1 and with all the rocks and stuff. And it's like, we could film here, and then it's, it got bigger and bigger. And it's like, then it was going to be a matte painting, like the scene where we go down the city street and it's hell on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was originally just going to be a matte painting. Reggie opens the door, sees a matte painting, and that was the end of the scene. And I started working out the matte painting, and I was telling Don, it's like, Don, let's just put this on the back burner for now. I have an idea, but I want to just try building a CG set and see what would happen. I've never done it before, but it's like, let's just try it, and it's not Pixar and it's not Digital Domain or ILM, but it's just one guy and his laptop, that's basically how I had to do it. And that shot took me almost 2 months because I am doing it on my laptop and I can't freaking render. Like it would take, 20 minutes to render one frame, and then you get 3 seconds in and you realize you screwed something up or you forgot to turn on some, virtual lights or something, and
Right.
you'd have to start all over. So it took forever, but we treated that and the Red Planet with that. Like, let's film it on green screen and let's just go for it. And, we'll find the best solution when we get there.
Mm-hmm.
And if we, if the solution is terrible and hokey, we'll reshoot, at a location or on a sound stage, and we'll pony up, our personal money or whatever to get this thing done.
Mm-hmm.
But, thankfully, for the most part, I'm really proud of how that came out and those scenes. And we got to do, some scenes on the Red Planet, which Don always wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, again, it was all just, creatively just writing what you want to see, what you wish you could see. If this thing had $50 million, and then how can you do it for, a fraction of that?
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, that I'm so glad you guys decided to do that, because for me, like you said, people saw and they said it's obvious, but when I watched Jaws, that is clearly not a real shark. You can see hinge, you see it, it's there. But
Absolutely, that's the films we grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the story is so great. You're just like, pfft, and your mind just pushes that away. And that's how I feel about this movie. Yeah, there's some stuff that, it's not real, but whatever. The story is so good that just doesn't, any of those little things just don't even matter. You're in the story.
I also think
Well,
it's a
thanks.
phantasm that it's a strange world anyway, and some of it's in your mind and stuff. So you kind of have some things that are just bizarre, like what works for it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it works perfect for Phantasm. That's what Don and I kept telling ourselves. But yeah, it's like you're saying, it's those are the films that we grew up with, and I tend to watch nowadays. I tend to watch a lot of older movies more than modern movies, just because I like to be able to see the creativity. I mean, that's part of the charm for me on a lot of these films is the passion that goes into wanting to tell the story, and that everyone giving it their all. I love that, and that was again something we tried to do with this film, and and Don never announced this film at all. We just kind of announced it one day and then threw a trailer out the next day. Mm-hmm. That was something that Don and I talked about. It's like, those are like how we saw movies as, when I was a kid. I never knew, Aliens or
Right.
was coming out, but one day there's a trailer out of nowhere. There wasn't like months and months of prepping and talking about the casting and all that stuff. For me, that kills a lot of the magic.
Yeah.
Like press releases and stuff like that.
Yeah, I actually try to stay away from watching any of that kind of stuff online or anything, just because I still like to be surprised, so.
Yeah,
But
That's
for the
part of
nice
the fun.
people that are listening to us do our press interaction with you. No, it's really it's so freaking. I'll be honest. I haven't even seen all of the Phantasm movies. You don't even have
right.
to see all of them. You can,
Well,
you
thanks.
know,
I mean,
I mean, you see the first couple, you know the basic story, you know who these people are. You start the movie, and it is just totally enjoyable.
Oh, thank you. Because I mean, it truly is basically a glorified fan film. It's made for the fans. I am a fan. You know, one thing Don and I again talked about, you know, when structuring this thing is like you easily. It's been what 15, 17 years since
Wow.
Part 4.
Mhm.
You easily could spend a good 30 to 40 minutes just doing exposition of everything that's happened before and how it ties together. And
Yep.
you know, we were just like, you know, forget that. We'll spend a minute with Reggie kind of talking briefly about the tall man, but
Yep.
for the most part, it just picks up almost where Part 4 left off, basically. You know, and I love that about the film. You know, part of me was always like, you know, if someone goes in and doesn't get it, hopefully it's intriguing enough that it makes them want to go back and watch the other films.
Yeah.
It does. Honestly, that is what happened, because I'm like, this is movies, and I love that you have the intro and Reggie's doing the voiceover for it. It's so super, and I just feel silly because I don't usually get super excited about movies, but it just was such an awesome adventure, and you're in there, you feel for the people,
Wow.
and it really does make me want to go and watch the few that I didn't watch.
And I'm someone who's seen all the Phantasm and grew up with the original Phantasm as one of my favorite movies, and I thought it was a great ending to the series, to the franchise, and it was really cool how it it has the throwbacks to all the different Phantasm movies. You know, you see some some characters, the main characters, but then you see some ones pop in, and I also thought it was cool how you do see some of the older movies, even back to the first movie, and that helps in the whole kind of like there is no linear time here. It's kind of back and forth between times and between realities. And
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I mean, there's even just some hidden things in there, like the blanket that Dawn puts on Reggie in the cabin when he falls asleep. That's the actual blanket from Part 1.
Oh, wow.
That Reggie puts on Mike in front of the fireplace,
That's awesome.
He finds out Jody died.
Yeah.
And then, and stupid things like the trunk, when all the weapons, if you look, there's a toilet plunger in there. There's a little throwback to Part 3 when they use the toilet plunger. So there's like a little, just little Easter eggs hidden throughout, where Don had these props. And it's like, let's throw that in the background, and
yeah.
And I mean, the CUDA itself, that's the Part 2 CUDA, and my wife is the one that made it the battle CUDA.
Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
It's like, I mean, I got to keep that thing in my garage for months as we've worked on it, and I would just go out and sit in that thing every now and then going, holy cow, I'm in the CUDA. And it's in my it's leaking oil all over my garage. Awesome.
I love that oil. I will never clean it.
Yeah. Nope, the stains are still there.
That's a pretty badass scene too, the chase scene with the sphere and the CUDA.
I love that. We knocked that thing out in one afternoon. That was one of these things where we only had one chance to do it. Had to do like 60 to 70 camera setups, and it was just me, Don, Reggie, his wife, and our stunt driver Bob Ivy, and it was just the 5 of us out in the middle of the freaking desert. We were like 40 minutes away from any restrooms or food or anything. It was just just go out there and do it. And I'm an idiot. I didn't bring sunscreen or anything. It was like 100 and some degrees and like 30, 40 mile per hour winds blowing sand at you. You get sand blasted. And I learned my lesson, but, that was one of those scenes. Oh, and here's a little story for you. I don't know if we said in the commentary or not, but, the last shot we were doing with the CUDA was that reverse peel out. There's a part where Reggie throws the car in reverse to get away from the sphere.
Yeah.
And I remember telling Bob Ivy, like, hey, can we actually peel this thing out in reverse? Have you tried that? And like, no, let's try it. So we're filming it. And as we're filming, all of a sudden we blow the transmission on the CUDA. You just hear the whole engine go. It's like, and again, we're like 45 minutes away from civilization, and we're like, this car in the middle of the road is dead. We're like, okay, let's move this car. It's like 100 degrees out. This is American, made steel. Like a freaking hot car, and it weighs, thousands of pounds, and we're trying to push this thing to the side of the road. And then it's like a good, 3 hours before any kind of tow truck can make it all the way out there. So that pretty much called the end of our shooting day, was when we destroyed Don's car. It's since been fixed.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you're the person to ask about this, but do you know what Reggie's wife Gigi thinks of Reggie always being kind of a horn dog in the Fantastic movies?
Well, the good thing is Reggie was already the character Reggie, right. Doing that character when they met. Uh-huh. So she at least knew going in that he had this thing. And we thought it would be funny to play on that, to not hide the age either, that, he's trying to get this girl, and then, he's going to write a song for her, and she's not impressed. And then he's finally going to get some action, but he's so old he falls asleep, we thought that was a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm sure she's dealt with that, but,
Did he actually write the song in the movie?
Yeah. I wrote a generic version of what I wanted him to do, and then I gave it to Reg, and Reg was like, we got to blow these lyrics out. We got to build this up a little more.
He's like, I'm not playing that.
So he totally rewrote it, made it great. I mean, what's he say, like a brand new, brand new dawn or brand new morning? It's just like totally hilarious. But he's playing it live in the movie too. We didn't re-record or anything like that. Mm-hmm. We didn't have that kind of money, so he plays it live in the film, which is great.
Yeah. It's actually funny. The first person I ever did a video interview with was Reggie Bannister in 2011 at a convention, and he just started playing the guitar on the interview. It was pretty awesome.
That's great. Like him and Bill Thornberry, both, fantastic guitar players, and they both do that. And they bring guitars to the set, and off, in between, shots and stuff. Their scenes. There's always a song going on, and Michael Baldwin is a fantastic whistler. And really? A lot of people think that's funny, but I mean, this guy is freaking amazing. Yeah. So with his whistling, it's something haunting about it. So you get those three together, and they're just like, they got a band going, where we usually have to tell them, shut up, we're filming.
That's really cool.
Did you ever read? You go on, sorry.
I was just going to say real quick, because of music. The music is great, too.
Oh, this score, we spent a long time with it, but Chris Stone, he did the score for the previous films, but the first film was Malcolm C. Grieve and Fred Myrow, and Chris worked with them, but he also did like the voices for the dwarves and stuff.
Yeah.
So part of the thing was getting all this cast back. Don's like, hey, I know you know a bunch of composers and stuff, but what would you think of working with Chris Stone? It was like, that was a given. And, Chris, for me, this whole story of not using a 3-act structure, or just being a little nonlinear in our storytelling, I was very to me, it was very important that the music ties some of these nonlinear elements together into a linear fashion. To me, a score it's just as important as one of the actors. You know, it is another actor and helps you tell the story. So, I mean, Chris just totally knocked it out of the park. You know, and we'd go over like, you know, every week, like every weekend, I would just go over to Chris's house and he'd play what new stuff he has. And we would just talk about the emotion of the scenes and what the idea of the scenes were. And then Chris would just disappear. And like within a week, he's like, hey, I got this idea. And he would come over and it'd be like, dun, 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 dun. I'm like, Chris just played for me. I just, you know, might need a little more hearing the instruments. And, I mean, a fantastic guy. So thank you for noticing that. Cause I've been a fan of that Phantasm theme song, you know, and as a little kid, you know, I remember my mom got me from a garage sale a little, you know, cheapo Casio keyboard. And the first two songs I taught myself to play was Halloween, the Halloween theme, and the Phantasm theme.
That's awesome.
You know, and it was like being able to do that and make it this big epic score with these epic choirs and things. It was just something I've always wanted to hear with that Phantasm score, and Chris really brought it. And I mean, to me, that really tied a lot of the elements I had or issues I had with the nonlinear edit. He solved a lot of those issues for me and brought the whole thing together.
It's pretty wild. It would be really fascinating to see it without it in it, to see what kind of different feeling it would be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's different feelings to the music itself, you know, like when Reggie wakes up and he's in this other world, you know, the camera look changes a little bit and the music, you know, changes a little bit. And, you know, it's epic, but it also has a little bit more synth stuff in it than we've heard before. And, yeah, it's just, he really brought another element to this thing that just made it really big. And he also did a lot of the dwarf sounds and a lot of sound design for us as well.
Mm-hmm. This isn't so much a question, but when I was thinking about this, I think Phantasm, one of the rare horror movie franchises where it's not just built around the villain, like the hero is throughout the whole franchise. I mean, pretty much all besides like Evil Dead and maybe like Alien to a certain extent. You know, it's just really about the villain in the other ones. But and so it's nice.
Well, Don and I all
go on.
I was gonna say, Don and I always, you know, we talked about that aspect, you know, because I was telling Don, for me, Phantasm was like a serial, you know, it's like a pulp film. It was like this great, like, you know, amazing stories or weird tales, like this, you know, as though it was a story that with each chapter you're getting more and more information. And it totally was an opera. And that was just, you know, something we loved about the franchise. And for me, Phantasm's always been a character-driven story. It has a lot of plot, but it doesn't get too, I guess, overly heavy into the plot. You know, a lot of things are left mysterious because it's really about these characters. And when we were first developing these things as these shorts, originally I called it Reggie's Two-Fisted Tales. And it was just going to be, you know, Reggie's adventures and fighting, you know, Spears and the Tall Man and his minions trying to find Mike. And, you know, we're like, maybe this could be a web series or something like that. And then we called it Reggie Tales, making fun of Veggie Tales at the time was on all the time, that kids show. So, I mean, there was always a pulp feel to it. And even when I first edited the film, I had it broken down into chapters, you know, where we had chapter breaks, like chapter 1, chapter 2, and it went to chapter 13. And then, you know, I opted to take that out structurally. once we knew it definitely was going to be a film and not a serial
Mhm.
or a series of some sort.
Was there like a certain moment where you realized that you guys wanted to make a film and not put these as a series?
Well, like I said, it was originally at that point after we took time off,
Mhm.
you know, and the sad part is, you know, technology, when we first started this film, 1080p was just, you know, was just starting to really become available,
Mhm.
you know, and now everything's in 4K, you know, and we were looking back at this footage, you know, at the time everything was going 2K, and we're like, oh my gosh, you know, is this even going to hold up? And, you know, so it didn't cross my mind that it would be a film or even usable as a film at the time until we actually blew it up and took it to, you know, some screening things to see how it looks, you know, blown up, and it actually looked really good. So it was really then, you know, and once Don said, hey, we're making part 5 and you're directing, that's when it started getting real. You know, we brought in Michael Baldwin and Bill Thornberry and Kat Lester and started bringing all these people in, and, you know, I'm able to get some higher end equipment and stuff, and we're working a lot faster than we, you know, before we were literally just kids going out on a weekend shooting. But then once we decided to make it a film, it's, you know, now it's, you know, we had to really get into this and really, you know, shoot quickly.
Mhm.
So to answer your question, yeah, it did. But for me personally, I was thrown into it so fast where it's like, okay, we're making a movie. Let's get together tomorrow and we're going to do a script breakdown for the next scene. It was like, didn't really have much time to think about it.
Yeah.
It was more like, oh my God, I got this character. I got to get this camera. I got to get these lights. Because Don and I are, you know, I'm director, he's producer, but we're both also first ADs and gaffers and grips. And, you know, we did everything. And let me tell you, those Space Gate poles, the dimensional fork poles, those things are solid steel. They weigh like over 100 pounds each.
Wow.
Just taking them out to like the park scene where Reggie and Michael are talking and Reggie sees those Space Gate poles in the field. It's like, it took me freaking hours to set those things up, and I pulled my back. You're like trying to carry these things on a dolly. You know, Don and I end up doing a lot of that stuff ourselves. You know, that's how low budget we were, and just where we wanted to spend our money in other areas besides our own well-being. So, you know, there was a lot of those kind of elements that, you know, constantly reminded you you're making a movie, because we're constantly having to put up the equipment and take it down.
I would think that would make you feel so much more in touch with it and invested. I mean, no matter what, it's going to be your movie and it's going to be your project and you love it. But I would just think that would, even though it sucks to have to do so much stuff and so much work, I'm sure it got really tiring, that it's like a depth. There's like a different connection that you wouldn't have if you had like a ton of people around just doing all these different jobs.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I like smaller crews because they're more personal and there's not a lot of people standing around. Everyone wears multiple hats, but I mean, absolutely, it makes it very personal. And you know, and I'm an illustrator for my living and stuff, and you know, I'm one of these overly emotional illustrators. So, you know, putting all that into it, and you spend like 6 years on this. And like I said, I was a fan of the series too. You know, so like the last, you know, several months before the film comes out is gut wrenching because I'm just ripping myself apart and scared to death if everyone hates it. I just spent, you know, 6 years of my life on this labor of love, and I let Don down and I let Angus down, and you know, you're constantly running that stuff through your head, you know, so it's very personal. you know, and like you said, doing all these different jobs. You know, I actually think, you know, for Don and I, it was a lot of fun. We'll bitch about it, but that's part of the fun, you know. Talking about like that scene where Reggie's at the beginning walking down the middle of the street, saying 110 degrees, no food, no water. You know, that shot was just me, Don, and Reggie, and Don and I took a crane out there. You know, like a crane you have to put together yourself, basically. And Don and I are grips, and we're trying to figure out how to put this crane together out in the middle of the road. And then we had, you know, you see a cop coming down the street. It's like, okay, we gotta get the crane off the street. I remember being a complete idiot, and I stuck my hand between these two bars of the crane, not thinking about how the crane actually folds to raise and lower, and I got my hand caught in it and ripped my thumb open, started gushing blood everywhere as this cop goes by. And then, you know, having to film the rest of the day with, you know, because I forgot to bring Band-Aids, you just wrap an old dirty cloth out of the car around a bloody thing and keep going, you know. But you know, those are the horror stories that you love to tell, and it's fun to relive sitting on the couch, you know, talking about your movie and stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't fun at the time, but it's fun now.
Right. Well, what was it like to see the movie for the first time with an audience?
That was probably the worst moment of my life. I think, you know, like I played it, you know, for the cast at different times. Mm-hmm. But Michael Baldwin hadn't got to see it, and Cat Lester and Bill Thornberry hadn't got to see a cut of it yet because they all lived so far away. They weren't in the LA area. And we premiered it at the Fantastic Fest in Austin. You know, and the film started, and I don't know if you guys seen it or not, but I did this little like an old 50s science film where I play a doctor explaining, or a scientist explaining the previous films. And it was called Phantasm and You, and they played that, and that went really well, and the movie started, and there's all these cheers. But then the audience got quiet, and through the movie, it's like almost dead quiet, you know, and the horse gets killed, and I hear a couple of little oohs, but that's about it. I'm like, come on! I just killed a horse with a spear. We've never killed an animal, you know, with a spear.
That was hilarious.
And, yeah, it was just dead quiet. And again, like with Angus, I'm just sitting there white knuckling it, you know, like just making fists. And I'm looking over at Don, going, "Oh my God, Don, we've lost the audience. We've lost them. And you know, Harry Knowles from Ain't It Cool News was in the audience, and a lot of bloggers and a lot of reviewers were in there, and I'm just like, oh my God, you know, this is the kind of movie where people should be cheering, I would think, throughout. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until the end everyone started cheering, and I was really surprised. Like, all of a sudden it was this big blowout, and Harry Knowles immediately puts on Facebook or starts text messaging how much he loved it, and then, you know, all these other guys, and I was like, I didn't get that vibe at all from the screening. And when I started questioning people about it, they were all just saying they were so, you know, expecting just having this fun jump in there and it's just a bunch of action kind of movie. Mm-hmm. But they're like, no, we really got into the story and these characters, and it sucked them in, where they're just trying to figure it out and focus on what was happening. You know, and that was a different aspect that, you know, I didn't think of going into the movie, you know, although I always wanted people to really think about it and what this movie means to them. And, you know, the film is designed to have different endings depending on, you know, your thoughts on life and death and your outlook on life. But, you know, at that time, it was just, you know, I was looking for the raw reaction. Mm-hmm. You know, I wanted I wanted the pat on the back, the cheers, and I wasn't getting it, and I was getting really, really depressed during that screening. But you know, afterwards, hearing that actually meant a lot more than hearing cheers. After that, we had a screening at the Egyptian Theater, which is a very old theater here in Hollywood, and it sold out like 600 or 700 seats, and
wow.
it was a different type of audience. Fantastic Fest is a different type of audience. They're not all genuine horror fans. A lot of them, you know, it's just not playing horror movies. It's got a wide range of types of movies. Well, this other, we played Beyond Fest and at the Egyptian Theater, and that is a horror, and that was like an amazing screening because that was all cheering and clapping and hearing some people even sob, you know, at some of the later scenes, you know, which was pretty amazing to see. So I know I'm rambling a lot, but, you know, it's weird to think back on all these different emotions you go through with this, and even depending on your audience, and then, like I said, the venue changes. It has a different vibe at each one, and it plays havoc with someone like me who overthinks things.
Your rambling is fine, but now looking at the film and seeing and hearing the response from people, do you now consider your film to be a success for what you set out for?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I mean, you know, there's always some haters and there's always some negative stuff, but the thing is even though I was nervous about sharing the film and all that, I was already at a point where I was happy with this film. The thing is Don Coscarelli never would have put it out if he wasn't proud of it. You know, Don is an independent filmmaker. He doesn't have, you know, these big studios saying we're putting it out no matter what, we'll just re-edit it.
Mm-hmm.
Don would just pull it.
Wow.
And, you know, the thing that I got his blessing, and, you know, that he loves it, and, you know, he watched it, you know, over and over and over again. You know, he would be like, oh, I just put it in just to check an audio cue, but then I end up watching the whole movie again, you know, and getting Angus's blessing. Once I had those two guys, to me, I almost didn't care what anyone else said.
Yeah.
As long as they were happy, you know, and that's really what I set out for. Because I'm a fan, and I wanted, you know, something that I wanted to see and something they wanted to see. So now actually getting to see, you know, getting a lot of good praise about it, and a lot of people actually being able to look past the low budget aspects of things, and like you said, get into the story. Yeah, I would definitely say for what we set out, it was a success. And, you know, like I said, we had many sold out screenings. Just the fact that a movie this low budget, this genre, even got into theaters, you know, we played in 50 cities, but, you know, even that's basically unheard of anymore with independent films. So, you know, so that was pretty, I mean, that was rewarding in itself. But then again, getting praise and, you know, and actually having Variety and Entertainment Weekly and other people actually give us praise, looking past the low budget and what they liked and didn't like about the stories. And now being able to, like, read on blogs and stuff to a certain limit, because I will drive myself insane reading negative stuff. For every 1,000 good reviews, one negative will tear me apart. But getting to read, like, other people's interpretations of the film too, because, like I said before, we set out thinking that this film can have different interpretations and different meanings to the ending, really. Even if you're a pacifist or not a pacifist, but a pessimist or an optimist, you know, just even that outlook on life can change the way you look at the ending. So now getting to see other interpretations, and then seeing people's interpretations you never even thought of, where they see something else in it. that's rewarding because that's what we set out to do. Phantasm for me was the type of film that I would go hang out with buddies and we, get a pizza and beers and we'd watch Phantasm. And then afterwards we would talk about it for an hour and a half, what different things meant or what they could be. And then we would argue about things and, that was great, and there's a lot of other movies I wasn't doing that with, So just the Phantasm, it strikes up conversation and dialogue and gives you something to think about. And again, Don and I feel like we had a lot of answers in the film, and some people were upset that it wasn't handed to them on a silver platter. But, as Don said, the answers are there. You just have to work for them. And again, it might not be a definitive ending. It's not the Death Star blowing up, but there is definitely an ending there, and even hope can be an ending, So there's a lot of different interpretations there. So I don't know. I'm probably getting too wordy for it. It's still a movie with a guy shooting a gun out of a car at silver balls flying in the air, which is just badass. So so I don't want to get too heady with this stuff, but in hindsight, you think about this stuff too much.
But like you said, it's a great thing when you could take a movie that could be taken just at face value. This is a cool action movie. It's got humor. It's got these different things, but then you can go further with it if you like to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what Don and I were hoping for, and personally, we feel like it was successful at that. We didn't, like we said, we didn't have the big budget to do the big end of the world blockbuster, that Don originally had in mind, when he wrote, Roger Avery from Pulp Fiction wrote, his Phantasm script. And
Phantasm 1999.
And there's aspects of that in this film, like with the battle CUDA and stuff. But, it just wasn't possible with the type of budgets and stuff that Don was working with. And, so we decided to go this other route. And, I'm actually really glad we did. 'Cause I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
Mm-hmm. Now, is it the last time we'll ever see a Phantasm project?
I don't know. It's funny. Don's been asked this several times, and Don's answer's always been, can there be? Angus has passed.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you saw the new Star Wars,
yeah, right. True.
Please don't have
and don't get me wrong, that aspect has been brought up several times. But, who knows? But in my mind, again, it goes to that serial, and if Phantasm really is this end of the world type of thing, there are a lot of other stories to tell, even outside of Michael Baldwin's character, or Reggie's character. There's other people involved, Yeah. And, we even had, a little scene there with our guy Chunk and Gloria Henry, who played Rocky in part 3, where we're like, these two, we love working with these guys. Let's just do a little fun scene, and put it at the end here. But, could there even be novels or more comics, even if it went to different mediums, even radio plays are fun. I mean, it could be anything, there's a lot of things you can do with the world Don's created. So I wouldn't say for certain that it's over, but there's definitely an aspect that died with Angus. Mm-hmm. But it's Don's world, so it's he's always surprising us. So let's see what he brings.
Would you work? I assume you would. But is there any plans for you and Don to ever to do anything else together, even if it's not Phantasm related?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we still talk on a regular basis, and we're always pitching ideas to each other. And like I said, even before Phantasm, we wrote we were coming up with this idea of the script, and we we brought in a friend, Steven Romano, to write, which was the Escape from Freak Mansion thing. But it was an idea that I pitched Don, and then Don liked it. So we're always kind of working out stuff like that. And I got to help Don, on Bubba and Incident on and off of Mountain Road. And we've talked about other things I can direct and he can produce, and other things he can direct and I can help produce or whatever. It's just fun. That's the fun aspect of independent filmmaking, I think, where, it's just coming up with this stuff and then just taking it into fruition. And that stuff's a lot of fun. I don't know how else to explain it, but yes, we definitely have a lot of plans for things. Let's just hope some of them get off the ground.
Yeah. You might not be a person to ask about this, but you brought up Bubba Hotep a couple times. You think we'll ever see the sequel?
I would love that, and honestly, I've talked with Don about that several times, and there was I know he had a script for Bubba Nosferatu that I read that was freaking hilarious. So I hope so. Who knows? Bruce is, in Ashes versus Evil Dead, and that's a big hit. So he may not be approachable now. Who knows? Right. But I would certainly love to see it.
You get Reggie Bannister. I think he'd be a good. He'd be good.
Yeah, and he was in Bubba Hotep. He had a brief. He was the doctor or the head of the senior center there. And Dan Roebuck and Daniel Schweiger were the two ambulance drivers, and they were in Ravager, Demeter, and then the guy that was driving the CUDA at the beginning. So they were both in Bubba, and that's where I met them.
Well, that's pretty sweet. And you yourself have a cameo in Ravager.
Yeah, Don and I. That was a last minute thing. I made that after I made that big sequence, that city. Don and I were like, we gotta put ourselves in that. That's too cool. So Don came over to my house, and like I said, I'm always making these short films, so I painted my garage chroma key green when I got the house. So my garage is all green, so I could just take the cars out and start shooting whenever I want. And
that rules.
So Don comes over, and he directs me, and then I direct him. And I'm hoping I got a lot of behind the scenes footage of even just that our little cameo, which was a lot of fun to film. So, and I also, Don gave me a cameo in John Dies at the End. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was, the spider scene, it turns into, there was a spider attack. I was the guy that falls into the pit, and then it freeze frames on his face, screaming, with my glasses broken, and then it turns into an animated sequence. And I did the animated sequence, so Don had me play the guy getting,
awesome.
me and my family getting killed. So that was a lot of fun. And the meat monster. I did the voice for the meat monster.
Really? That's awesome.
At the beginning of that film. So that was a lot of weird stuff. But that's, like I was saying, like the independent filmmaking. Everyone wears different hats, and you just kind of jump in and do all these little cameos, and where we can all be hams. And it's fun. It's a job, but it's fun.
Are any of your short films available anywhere?
They are. Most of them are really crazy. I know I have a bunch on YouTube. I did, I had this one series called Adventurous und Magic House, where I play a Girl Scout, and I got my friend. I'm a Girl Scout. There's a giant Bigfoot with an eyeball for a head and a mime, and we all live in a house together fighting monsters.
What's this called? Because it sounds amazing.
I was wondering what the crazy
Yeah, it's called Adventurous und Magic House. Magic with a K at the end. So if you look up look up Sideshow Monkey is my website. I think it's on the website. And then go to YouTube, type in Sideshow Monkey. Dan Harmon from Community and Rick and Morty and stuff. I did a short film series with him called Laser Fart, where he plays this guy that can shoot lasers out his butt, and Dan would write and I'd direct, and we just we did like 8 or 9 of these, and again, it was just shooting on a weekend, and then spend a couple weeks editing. So you can find those online, but usually my thing is just have monsters and freaks in it. There's one called Freako Asylum about guys running in an insane asylum filled with monsters. Everything has monsters. Yeah, but if you look at that stuff, there's a bunch. A lot more comedy than straight horror, though.
No,
and that's why we were like,
fantastic.
got to work on my reel. I love straight horror, but all my opportunities have been comedy or kids animation, which has been very good to me, and I love it. But that's not what I set out to do. It just ended up, I got into it, and then it pays good, and I love it, and
that sounds like good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, and I get to work on big properties like Starship Troopers. These were the TV animated versions, but Starship Troopers and Godzilla and Spider-Man and Men in Black and all these franchise shows, and now I'm doing Transformers for the last 8 years. So,
Awesome.
So it's a lot of fun, and
Yeah.
with Transformers, got to work with Kurtzman and Orsi, who are the original. The guys who wrote the movies, the Michael Bay movies, and the Star Trek reboot, and
Yeah.
Get to work with them at their bungalow at the beginning, and I, pitch
Wow.
my first animated episode. We get to pitch it at Steven Spielberg's hidden Amblin conference room at Universal Studios. It's
Damn.
like all these little things that are just like amazing little dream come true for an animated series. So
Man, you've got like a pretty sweet life.
now that I'm talking about it, yeah. I'm usually bitching about it, but yeah, now I'm talking about it out loud. I'm like, what are you bitching about? This sounds awesome.
I know, this
get
is
to
kind of
sit
like
at a desk and make
dream
cartoons.
stuff you're talking about. Yeah, that's amazing.
I know. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's like it's not the dream I set out to have, but it is a dream. So I just like making stuff. That's really what it comes down to, no matter what the medium. I just like to tell stories and make things. So, but the dream's always been horror movies. That's like I said, at 7 years old, getting that Fangoria set me on a path of loving horror and all things monsters and horror movies, and that's always been the dream. That's always been the end goal for me. So getting to have this opportunity and letting Dawn actually. I mean, to me, that's just been, I don't know how to express how grateful I am that, I mean, this is his baby. Don's an independent filmmaker. He's only directed his movies and his properties. And just that he was willing to hand the reins over to let me direct, I'm eternally grateful. And at the same time, I wouldn't shoot any of the scenes without having him on set. I always wanted Don on set that I can ask questions to or answer. I still, no matter what, I wanted to still feel like a Don Coscarelli production.
Yeah.
And wanted it to fit on the shelf with the other films and not be a calling card for me to show off my camera moves, or what new tricks. It really was about just trying to tell a simple story, or a non-simple story, but in the most simplest of terms and just basic filmmaking. So just that Don, was with me all the way, holding my hand all the way. It's totally grateful. And what an amazing experience. I'm tearing up now talking about it. It's like, so again, I'm a fanboy. I love
Those
this
sound
stuff.
pretty awesome.
No.
I won't deny you your tears because it's pretty awesome. So other than
Yeah, it is.
Phantasm, other than Phantasm, you want to do horror movies. What are the other horror movies that you enjoy, and what kind of horror movies? Because maybe they're not necessarily lined up, but what kinds of horror would you like to do?
Well, I mean, that's, to me, it's always been changing, I mean, as I was younger, I was hardcore into, the gore films, and I still love Friday the 13th. I still love Jason Voorhees as a killer, but now, monster movies. I love monster movies still to this day. There's not enough creature features for me anymore.
Yeah.
I love ghost stories and stuff like that, but there's nothing wrong with just a mutant.
I agree.
Completely, messed up mutant creature that's wreaking havoc, So hopefully maybe someday I can bring those back. And, and I freaking love, a lot of people hate it, but I loved Prophecy, that Prophecy bear I mentioned on Fangoria. That movie had an impact on me as a kid as well. But, no, I mean, these days I tend to gravitate towards the older stuff. As much as I love the new movies, I love, we've gone through this whole paranormal and ghost phase in filmmaking now, and I love those films, but I still love Texas Chainsaw, and those kind of films. But as a horror film goes, now that I'm getting older, I don't know if that's actually the reason, but I do love more thinking movies and psychological thriller type horror. I say that, but then the kid in me going right now, I'm thinking about, damn, I want to do a mutant monster movie.
Well, it seems like your Phantasm movie was a really good crossroads for both of those perspectives.
Well, it was. And like I said, my short films always had action and comedy and stuff like that. But there was always this side where I really wanted to do, something a little more dramatic, a little more drama, just as a filmmaker, because it was something that was new to me, and, getting to be able to, again, write these words and have these actors who are, phenomenal actors, read these lines and bring life to the words. The drama scenes are some of my favorite scenes in the movie, although I'm proud of, like I was saying, the car chase and everything we were able to accomplish. But there's some about seeing Reggie Bannister playing an older version of himself, talking to, Michael Baldwin playing a bookwormish version of himself. Just doing those scenes was so rewarding to edit and put together. And at that point, it's like I'm not looking at fancy camera work or anything like that. It was all about the performance and what the actor was delivering. And, as a director, that was probably the most rewarding scenes in the film for me.
So, where can...
I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yes.
Definitely.
And I'm probably going to have to go here soon, unfortunately. I have a meeting to go to for Transformers.
Oh, okay. Right.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So, real quick.
Yeah. Sorry.
No. It's been great.
Yeah, it's only been an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, no, but.
So, just real quick, where's the best way for people to find you online, not like in your house or anything?
Well, of course, Facebook. Everyone's on there, just under my name, David Hartman. But my website, sideshowmonkey.com, you can go there. It has a lot of my artwork and, like I said, some links to the short films, but it also has all the contact links and the Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. So you can pretty much reach me through that. Awesome. And you should also check out the Phantasm Ravager Facebook page, too, because we're still posting things every now and then. And, I'm still making little goofy ad short films and stuff on there to promote the film. So that's always fun.
Awesome. Well, we want to thank you for coming on. It's been great.
Hey, thank you guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to get to talk about the film. And, it means a lot to hear you guys, really enjoyed it and everything you got out of it. For me, again, as a filmmaker, it means a lot to hear that. And we've worked in a bubble and, you'll read things online and stuff, good and bad, but it's not until you actually get to talk with people and like-minded people that, love horror films and grew up with the same things and stuff. So to hear your approval, it honestly means a lot to me. So I appreciate it. And again, thanks for having me on.
Thank you for an awesome movie. I so loved this movie.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. So, hopefully there'll be a box set sometime in the near future, and we'll hopefully get some more extras, because I have a lot of outtakes and behind the scenes stuff I'd love to release sometime.
Nice.
So,
awesome.
Hopefully we'll get that out in the near future.
Awesome.
That'd be great.
All right. Well, thanks again, man, and good
all
luck.
right. Thank you, guys.
For everything.
Yeah.
All right. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Thanks for being here.
All right, bye-bye.
Take care.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Tim Baum from Braindead. You're listening to WithoutYourHead.com.